The old Tanner farm sat on the edge of town, a lonely relic surrounded by decaying cornfields and overgrown brush. It had been abandoned for as long as anyone could remember. The farmhouse itself was dark and dilapidated, its windows clouded with grime, and its paint long since peeled away. But every Thanksgiving a flicker of light could be seen from the farmhouse windows, faint and eerie. The Tanners, a reclusive family, almost never seen by the townsfolk, would gather for what they called their harvest feast. They were a simple people, deeply private, and rarely ventured into town. No one knew what went on inside the house, and few were brave enough to ask. That year, a group of curious teenagers, Tommy, Lisa, and Derek, decided to investigate. They had heard the rumors and dared each other to see if the stories about the Tanners were true. So on Thanksgiving night, the three set off for the farm, armed only with flashlights and a sense of adventure. The fields were thick with dried corn stalks that rustled like whispers in the cold wind. As they crept closer to the farmhouse, the air turned thick and sour, tinged with a metallic smell that clawed at their throats. The teens exchanged nervous glances, but none of them wanted to be the first to back out. The farmhouse loomed before them, dark except for a faint, yellowish glow seeping from one of the windows. Quietly, they approached and peered inside. Inside, the Tanners were gathered around a long, rickety table laden with food. The sight was strange. The farmhouse interior was barren and unkempt, the walls covered in peeling wallpaper and grime. But the table was set as if for a grand feast. There was a large turkey at the center, along with dishes of vegetables, stuffing, and something that looked like cranberry sauce. Yet under the dim light, the food looked wrong. The turkey was grayish and raw-looking, glistening unnaturally, as though it had been left out too long. Tommy leaned in closer, squinting. His breath caught as he realized what was off. The turkey wasn't a bird at all, but an unrecognizable mound of flesh, bone, and sinew. Bits of hair and small bones were scattered around it, some still bloody. His stomach churned as he looked closer. One of the bones looked eerily like a human finger. Then he noticed the Tanners themselves. They were pale and gaunt, with dark eyes sunken deep into their skulls. They tore into the food with a hunger that was disturbing to watch. The youngest Tanner, a boy no older than 10, sat at the end of the table, his face smeared with something dark and red. His eyes were sharp and glowing, and his mouth, when he grinned, revealed jagged, pointed teeth, nothing like a human's. Lisa let out a gasp, unable to contain her horror. At that sound, the boy's head snapped up, locking his glowing gaze on them through the window. A wicked smile spread across his face as he watched them, unblinking. Slowly, one by one, the other Tanners looked up, their eyes gleaming in the dim light, their faces twisted in eerie smiles that made the teens' skin crawl. Then, as if on cue, the front door of the farmhouse creaked open. In a single, unnatural movement, the Tanners were outside, moving faster than any of the teens could comprehend. The cold night air filled with the sound of their guttural growls and ragged breaths. The teens screamed, stumbling back as they tried to run, but it was too late. The Tanners closed in on them, their bony hands reaching out, claw-like fingers digging into their clothes, their flesh. Lisa was the first to fall, dragged back toward the house by two of the Tanners. Tommy and Derek managed a few more feet before they, too, were caught, pulled back through the mud and into the farmhouse. As they were dragged across the threshold, the door slammed shut, sealing them inside with the family for the harvest feast. The next morning, as the sun rose over the farm, the townsfolk noticed something strange. A half-eaten turkey had been left outside the Tanner house, as if discarded. Someone eventually called the sheriff, who arrived to investigate. What he found chilled him to the bone. The turkey wasn't a turkey at all. It was the remains of one of the teenagers. Bones picked clean, flesh torn and shredded. The sheriff searched the farmhouse and the surrounding property, but no trace of the Tanners or the other teens could be found. Only the remains on the front step, a sick offering to those who dared disturb the Tanner family's harvest feast. No one ever saw the Tanners again, but each year on Thanksgiving, a dim light is said to appear in the farmhouse window, and locals swear that if you get close enough, you can still smell the metallic tang of blood and hear the faint, chilling sound of laughter drifting from the empty fields.